Welcome to the Empowered Entrepreneur Show. Discover your life's purpose, reprogram your mind for success, and attract an abundance of paying clients to your business. Now, here's your host, Tom Tenaglia.
Aloha, Empowered Entrepreneur. I am Tom Tenaglia, and you're listening to the Empowered Entrepreneur Show. And in this episode, I want to go over the idea that every decision, everything that you implement in your marketing filters your prospects. Whether that's attracting the prospects you want or turning off the prospects that you don't want. And it's filtering them even if you don't know it's filtering them, even if you're not consciously aware of it. What I mean by this is something as simple as deciding in your upsell funnel whether or not you want to allow the viewer, the customer, to skip ahead in your video is a decision. And a lot of marketers would say, you got to turn off the controls. You can only let them pause and play. You can use software that remembers where they left off, but you can't let them fast forward. And you got to hide the button that takes them to the next page, and you got to force them to watch the video. And I go, I don't want customers that I have to force to do anything. I want customers that understand the value that I provide, that know that they want to work with me, and even more so, that are so busy that they truly basically have to work with me if they want to speed things up in certain ways, and that they're so busy that they don't even have time to watch that video. So why am I going to restrict the access to the controls and hide the button, which to me is just extremely childish? Like, I don't want a child as a client. I want an adult. And I want an adult who's busy, who knows what they want, who knows that I can provide it, and who wants to work with me to get it. So based on that criteria, would I hide the controls or not? And then they're like, oh, no, I guess you wouldn't. Right. I also want to be transparent. I want to show them that what I'm presenting them is an offer, if it's an offer video. So put the button on there. Why not? Maybe even add text underneath the video so they can just read the sales message, as opposed to taking some of these upsell videos 20, 30, 40 minutes long. They're not supposed to be, but some of them are. And I'm like, then they can read the page and decide, do they even want that offer or not? That's what I want. So this is interesting because as a buyer, the amount of upsells that I have chosen not to even partake in because there was a video like that, not solely because of the video, because I'm busy, because I just want to get the thing that I paid for at the front end, and I didn't want to go through an upsell process. And even if I go through an upsell process, show me an offer that directly helps me further, and just present the offer. I have a problem. I'm in a buying decision at that point. And then from there, I can say, yeah, this is something I want or not. There are certain rules that I like to have in my marketing. How many upsells, how many downsells, what to show, what not to show, in terms of how we present these messages. Because I've seen sales funnels that, they give you the marketing messages, but everything you click is it's another upsell or another downsell or another. I'm like, no. There's a certain amount where it's like, at that point, that's it. Let them start consuming the value that you provide in the material they just bought. And then if they need more help, work with you on the back end, work with you after the fact. So it's interesting because there was one product I bought that, well, I'll give you this one first because it's easier to tell that story. It took me through so many upsells and downsells that the final downsell, which is so funny, I was actually trying to buy it, and the accept button on that final downsell didn't even work. And my suspicion, I tried it 3 or 4 times, 2 different browsers. I was like trying to figure out, how does this button take me anywhere? And My suspicion is they had so many paths in how they could go through that funnel, accept one, and then all the downsells from there, or decline one, and all that they just didn't even test all of them. And what's interesting is after I got through that sales process, I reflected back on it, and I'm like, I don't even need that upsell anymore, because I look at their content, the front end content, and I'm like, I already knew all this stuff. I don't need it. What are they going to give me in the upsell? But if your front end content over delivers and really helps them and gets them to be able to implement stuff, well, then I would be like, shoot, I can do what they just told me I could do, but do it faster. Now I want to go back and get their thing. And that's how I like to be with my customers. Have I made products before that before I woke up to this realization? Yeah. I have. I've made just about every mistake that you can possibly imagine. At this point where I am in my business, I want to make sure that even the simplest offer from me helps you in some way and gets you some result in some way. Truly, that's what I want to do. So am I perfect at it? No, but I'm learning and refining, and it gives me a good focus. And the purpose of this podcast, though, is to look at how every decision that you make, though, in that process filters who you work with and who you don't. I don't want to work with people that have the 20 minutes to sit to watch the upsell video. I want to work with people that have other things to do in that 20 minutes and that they just need help with a problem right now, more immediate need. Therefore, that's that. The second example of this filtering thing, so I had purchased a product from a company, and I eventually purchased the back-end sale from them, but it was a longer sales cycle. It was almost a year, and I hadn't consumed the product I purchased from them for a number of months. And there was a series of events that kept occurring in my life that brought me back to, hey, wait a minute, I thought I bought something that solved this problem about 6 months before. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did. And then I went and consumed it because I remembered the sales message enough. I remembered the problem it would solve. And then when the problem kept coming back around, I went back to that product. Well, here's the thing. Before I had gone back to that product, I come across another company who was marketing something very, very, very similar. It was still different, but very similar. Their upsell took the controls away of their upsell videos. And they were trying to teach me, hey, you can do the same kind of process in your business. And I'm going unconsciously. I wasn't even aware of it at the time. But I'm going, I don't want to sit through this video. And if you're going to tell me that I have to make my customers sit through this video, I don't want to do it. In hindsight, I reflected on that. And I'm like, okay, because I didn't even watch the video. I didn't even buy their upsells. I didn't. I went through his basic product to some degree. I don't even think I fully consumed it. But I went through it enough. And then what happened was he then did a webinar funnel. And so I didn't even attend live the webinar. I waited for the recording so I could play it 2x speed. And then I did the exercises that came with the webinar. All right. And then I scheduled a call with him. Now his call was only a 15-minute call, and he didn't fully understand my problem, and he made me an offer, and I told him no. Versus this other company, and I think I shared some of these stories on previous episodes, who their upsell process, I bought all their upsells. They didn't try to restrict it. They helped me support what they were selling me originally. So I bought all their upsells. And it took longer in the sales process. When it was time to set up a call with them, it was my choice. They didn't take me through another funnel. The reason why I didn't go through the first guy's initial product in time was because he had pretty much immediately, within a short period of time, sent out an email about getting on a webinar. And it was a live webinar. It actually was a live webinar. And so it cut my time of consuming his material down. But I got to consume it through the webinar. This other company, though, I went through they had different ways of letting you consume the material. I generally, unless I really understand the audience a certain way or whatnot, I generally don't recommend that you take the same material into different formats and sell more for that. I generally don't, because you want to increase consumption. So so basically if you have a book you're selling, I generally don't. There's a lot of people that sell books and they make the audio book an upsell. Well, guess what? This guy was selling a book. He gave the audio book with the book included in the price of the book. And I consumed it by listening to the audio book. Why? Because I could put it on 2x speed and I could take notes or I could do whatever the heck I want and I don't have to sit there and read the book. It got me to consume the book in its entirety. If I had to pay more for it, I might not have consumed it. There are actually many books that I bought through book funnels that I still have that I've never read. And yet they had to ship me a physical book. But the way that was going to get me to consume it was to make what they had as their upsell in the product originally. A digital book with a free audio book, which is what I'm actually working on now to make, because I'm like, well, shoot, if I bought it that way, I'm going to make it that way. I'm going to make an offer that way too. And so, that got me to consume it versus these physical books I have sitting around here that I've never read because they wanted me to pay more for the audio book. So, which in many cases, because I would even listen to some videos that other people would put out and they were just giant, they weren't any content. They were just fluff. But I stopped paying. I started generalizing and I started saying, well, that marketer's, his book is probably entirely fluff. Whereas the book I bought and I consumed actually added value, and I listened to it through an audiobook. I scheduled a call because the book had ways of saying, hey, if you do want help with this, you can schedule a call with us. And this company's call was an hour plus long sales conversation. Now, I think they're changing up their sales process a little bit. They're just refining it. And the qualification side went really, really fast because I know I go into these sales funnels all the time. So I'm just like, here's who I am. Here's what I want. Here's what I want to know if you can do, blah, 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 blah. And he had a lot of questions for me, helped me figure things out, and had to help me get over the hurdle I was currently facing. And then said, here's how we're going to speed up that solution we just went over. Here's our offer. And then I bought it. Now, I guarantee you the sales guy is going to have a whole different way of explaining that conversation because it sounded like I was hesitant. Well, I was. I was hesitant because I had just gone through these other funnels and I had even bought high-end products, that gave me nothing more than what was in their free product. Didn't help me. So let's say you're writing a book and there's a task that says, come up with 10 titles of your book. Some other company just has a worksheet. It says, write down the 10 titles you came up with, 10 potential titles. Whereas this company that I'm doing, any step that was, hey, you need to be able to do this, the worksheets got you closer to the answer. It got you to the answer. It didn't just say put the value in. It was a worksheet, an actual worksheet, not just something in a document that you could fill in. So I'm like, oh my God, this is a whole new way of doing things. So the sales guy there explained all of that to me. And really, the type of person they want to attract is more along the lines of who I am. And everything that they did, the long sales call where he helped me over a hurdle, showed me something that was showed me a way to do it with the product or service that they had. Okay. And even down to the fact that they didn't try to restrict my consumption of the upsell, that actually let me consume it. Because I got to be self-motivated and I got to say, no, I know what I need. This is where I am in the sales process. This is what I'm looking for. And he got to say, well, here's what we do. And even did it so well that months later, when the problem kept coming back into my life, I remembered I had bought that item. And I went back to it and fully consumed it. Now, if you're saying, well, why didn't you consume it right after you bought it? That's a really good question. I actually don't even remember. I think some of his emails had gone into spam, and I didn't really look at his email follow-up. It wasn't until I bought his high-end offer that I made sure that none of his emails would go into spam and everything because of all the other stuff that they send. But I remember looking at the account, and it wanted me to download the PDF, and it wanted me to download a zip file of the audiobook. And I'm like, at the moment, I couldn't quite place it and say, well, I could just download it, put it on an MP3, app and then play it. And so it looked like, even though he gave me more flexibility initially, I remember thinking, I'll just come back to this later. And then I didn't until a series of things said, hey, you should go through this. Well, in my the book that I'm working on now, my hope is that I can get the technology such that if you want to download a zip, you can download a zip. If you want to just play the audiobook right on the website at 1x to 2x speed, you can do it. So I'm hoping I can do that. It's a different form. See, that's a different format for audio. Even within the audio, do you want them to download the audio? Do you want them to play it right from your site? And I don't believe in charging extra for different formats. I just don't. There are rare exceptions to that that are a topic for probably a whole nother discussion in terms of where different formats would matter. And I'm not talking about live delivery. There's a whole different way that we would figure out, does it make sense to do something online live, rent a place out live, and just like, okay, what are the different ways that you can get content that way? It's a whole different thing. I'm talking about digital delivery. I don't know why. I seriously don't know why people would much rather sell a physical book where they have to pay for the printing and fulfillment and not give me the audiobook, which they already have as digital files, versus this model that I bought from. So I just look at my own buying patterns and go, well, shoot, this guy gave a digital book and digital download of the audiobook included with the book. I'm like, that's the one I'm going to do for my book. Because it's going to attract the same kind of person that I am, and that's who I want to work with. I didn't want to work with somebody that I had to coerce at all. I think the reason why the other company had 15-minute meetings is because their qualification process stunk. And so or that's one reason why, or they thought that people were much closer to the buying decision than they actually were. And if they're marketing for people who are much closer to the buying decision than they actually were, and that's who they want to attract, fine. I don't mind helping somebody who has a hurdle, brings the hurdle to the call. We work through the hurdle a bit, and then we talk about here's how you can speed up the hurdle, getting over the hurdle completely. And I'm not saying it's necessarily, it's like, oh, well, do you just give them the full solution where, no, because I can't possibly take hours of content or working together and condense it into one sales call. But the sales call will make visible what those blind spots are, such that the offer can actually fill in and say, here's why this offer is a perfect match for you. That was a huge, I think that slowed down my sales call that I was on with that guy a little while. I didn't actually understand why what he was suggesting to me was the right fit for my problem, why his offer was the right fit for my problem. It wasn't until I said, well, okay, how does that help this? And then he tells me. And then how does that help this? And then he tells me. And then how does that help this? Then he tells me. And I go, oh, got it. And I explain it. And he goes, well, that's what I said to you 30 minutes ago about. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't know how it fit. So I got a lesson there when I'm on the other side of the sales call, realizing, and this is something that we learn that I've learned in some of the empowerment stuff that I do. You have to connect the product or service to what it is what the client needs are, and allow the client to see the value in your product or service by connecting what they need to the product or service. He had missed that step. I did it for him. I basically asked him all these questions for me to get that step fulfilled. And then I was ready for the purchase. Okay. So that's a whole nother discussion as well. But just think through in your business, every nuance. Who is this attracting? Who is this repelling? In order for somebody so you go, okay, hey, I want the person to take this action. So it's like, I want the person to listen to my upsell video. Okay, well, let's say your upsell videos, I'll be generous, say it's 10 minutes. I want the person to watch the upsell video. Okay, well, you're saying that if you take away the controls, that the person has 10 minutes right now to watch it. Is that the kind of person that you want? What do you really want? Do you really want them to watch the video, or do you want them to buy your upsell? And it's like, well, what are the different ways that you can explain the value in the upsell for the people who have the 10 minutes right now, for the people who don't have the 10 minutes right now, for the people who just want to get to their product they already purchased. Because your goal is the sale. Your goal is to sell that upsell to somebody who can benefit from it, not to get them to watch the video. People make the assumption if I force them to watch the video, that that's going to lead to the sale. And there's some statistics that do show removing controls can increase conversions. I'm not doubting that. I say, are they conversions of the people you truly want to work with? Remember, it's the Empowered Entrepreneur Show. I'm not just saying how to get sales, how to grow a business. We're talking about, does this empower you? Does this help you empower the planet? This is how you take the things that you do, okay, and bring it into the world. And are you being able to do it in a fulfilling way? I don't want to talk to people on sales calls that don't want to talk to me. I don't want to work with people in my business that don't already understand the value and that don't want to work with me. If I have somebody call me up and they go, I don't know why I called you up. I don't think you're a fit for me. I'm like, well, do you want to know for sure if we're a fit or not? If they go, nah, I don't think you're a fit, I'd be like, okay, cool. Call's over. I have no reason to convince, right? And so people think, all right, well, I'm just going to force the conversion. No, you're putting that force energy into your business. Is this like, if you go through the funnel and you're like, I would never watch this video, then clearly if you're in that target market, don't watch the video. Don't do it that way. Ironically, I will tell you this too. The company I bought from, they had bonus videos. I'm going to do this too. They had bonus videos that were in their book that you could well, maybe you could go to links. I was listening to the audiobook. I just typed in the web address as the narrator read it out. And you could watch. And they didn't restrict them there either. They didn't restrict the viewing. And what's interesting is it seemed like some of those videos were made for people who hadn't read the book yet. So the first portion of it was repeating some of the content in the book. I just skipped over that. And I went to the value they were delivering in that video specifically. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And that, I don't know if it was directly from that or a series of other things. I think I just said, okay, I think the conclusion I got, and this was probably the intention of this marketer, was there's a lot here. There's a lot to unpack. I have this problem. I just want to know if you can help me or not. Because I think that's what I said to the sales guy. I just said, there's a lot going on in my business. There's a direction I want to go. I know you guys have a lot of information. Do you have something that can help me with this problem? And then he actually got me to understand the problem. I think if I recall correctly, it wasn't that the problem was what I thought it was initially, which is what I do with my clients all the time. I show them the illusion of the problem and how it's not what they think it actually is. And then he said, well, here's what we have. And then he's like, oh, okay, cool. And then here's what we have. And it looked, on the surface, it looked like he was just selling generically. But when I asked him my questions, okay, well, how does what you're saying now fit back into this? And I was doing that step, which is a very important step of the sales process. Then he filled it in and I was ready to go. Okay. So everything, who do you want? This is why we say it again and again and again. Who is your customer, right? I've said it so many episodes, right? Who is your customer truly? Because then you can say, okay, would this customer even watch the video if I didn't allow them to access the controls? Okay. Now, I will tell you, there are ways of showing the value of the upsell after the front end purchase, but I would much rather you still have to think through, did they just not buy it because of these other reasons? And you really have to look at, who are you filtering in and out? Who are you, in your decision, who are you saying the person has to be for them to take the action that you're asking for? I want the person to watch the video. Oh, okay. Are they going to even have the time to watch the video? I thought you want to work with, and you pull out a really busy niche like single parents of kids younger than 3. ooh, are they going to have that 10 minutes? Maybe not. They might not. Right? So you got to then assess, is it doing that? Is it now, if you're helping people with, let's say you have a product that says this product will help you focus and it teaches you how to focus on one thing. Okay, then it may actually be beneficial for you to not have the controls on the video. I would also say in the video, the reason why this video doesn't have any controls is so that you can focus. See, we're already helping you with your focus right now. This is one way to eliminate distractions. I did it for you. Blah, 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 blah. Like, I would go into that. It's like, okay, a person who needs help focusing, yeah. But generally, that's not what, for my clients, it's generally not the kinds of clients they want. So think through it. What's your end game? And are you willing to do the things that are going to speak to your target market, even if that implies a longer sales cycle than to try to just squeeze out the money on the front end? Even the upsell, even that guy who did the 15-minute call with me, it was less of a nurturing and more of a, okay, you went through my stuff, now give me money. And it's like, no. Where's the nurturing process? Which ironically was in his process. He had nurturing in the process. So I don't think he was thinking about the psychology of the person that he's attracting, or he was simply saying that they wanted somebody who was already ready at that point. And that's fine. But then you got to be willing to let those people go somewhere else. I have no problem showing people the benefit of helping them overcome a hurdle in many, many, many different ways. And then they join one of the back-end offers. So one of them is the whole idea of, well, shoot, if we do this work together, some of this work with letting go of problems at the level of your unconscious, well, shoot, that can take care of a lot of these other things from just the problems underneath it. And instead of working on these, one at a time, why don't we just work on what connects them all together? Right? So, yeah. There's lots of things we can do there. And I got to get to a point where with a client that they realize that they can work on all those things together because of the way that we do it. And then that can take time. So it is what it is. But it's, who do I ultimately want to work with? And then thinking through each decision that I make. Even a client who calls me up and they're like, hey, I want to just sign up for your blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, I have no problem helping you sign up. I still want to ask you a few questions. One, I want to make sure it's the right fit for you. And two, I want to better understand what led you to realize that that's what you want, right? Because I need to make sure their reality is on point with what they're asking for. I made that mistake before. I cost myself a rather substantial sale where I was just like, okay, cool. Well, we'll process it this way. We'll do that. And we'll do that. And the person didn't go through. It was a huge lesson for me. I didn't run any of my sales discussion because they called me up ready to buy. Now, I've gone into sales conversations ready to buy before. And I said, here's all what I need. I said, can you answer this one question for me? And if you can, I have no problem answering the rest of your questions, which is what I would say when I was the buyer. I need to know, okay, here's my budget. Can you find something that works within this range? Or here's a problem I'm having. Can you tell me that there's something that you have that can help with the problem? I don't need to know what it is yet. Just this. Here's a question I have. I saw that you're marketing these types of events. I want to know, do you do this at the event? And if you can tell me that, then I have no problem going through whatever sales process you want to take me through. And the ones that did answer those questions for me, I ended up buying. The ones that were like, well, we got to follow this process. I'm like, well, then forget it. Because I'm not going to sit here for 45 minutes talking, like in my mind I'm thinking, talking to you if I don't even know that my base question, which was the reason for getting on the call, is even going to get answered. So then it becomes a time play for me. It's like, forget it. Not meant to be. And that's generally like I'm telling you how I make buying decisions. And those who were willing to listen to me and follow that process, they were able to get the sale. Every single one of them. Because I communicate with them and they're patient with me and we go through it and it's a decision made together. And I want to work with people that are patient with me to help me understand these things. And, that are out there with a greater purpose in mind. And that's what I want from my clients too. So I do my best to over deliver on any call that I have with a client. Right. So anyway, so in your business, think through, align your target avatar, your target customer, with the decision you're making in your business, and figure out, would that customer do the decision, take the action that you're asking them to take? Okay. Would that customer take that action? And either refine who your customer is or change the implementation that leads to the action that your customer would take. Huge meta perspective way of thinking about moving people through sales cycles. And this one just came from analyzing very similar funnels that I went through with very different outcomes. And in terms of who I bought from. Is some of that me versus other people? Yeah, sure. But I look at what are the lessons of what I got from going through it as a buyer, and then how do I take that lesson and incorporate that lesson into my business? Maybe there is a funnel that I'll have that will turn off the controls. I mean, who knows? But I should be able to articulate to you why that decision was made based on the type of customer that I would want to attract. So none of these are hard and fast rules. These aren't black and white things. These are, I'm just saying, consider who are you implying your customer to be or not to be? That is the question, right? I couldn't resist, in the decision that you make with how you're attracting them. Okay. That's the biggest thing. Okay. With that, aloha, ahui ho. I'll talk with you again soon. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Empowered Entrepreneur Show.